Yeah.
Hey, this is William for attackofthefanboy.com. I'm here with Brandon Adams, who's recently got a chance to sit down with Diablo 2 Resurrected prior to the public alpha test for the game. We've got some video here to take a look at ahead of being able to access that, and we're going to talk about the game in general, just give our overall impressions so far of this technical alpha, and take it from there. Brandon, you're the one who spent the majority of the time with this game. You have a strong familiarity with Diablo 2 and Diablo series in general. What is it that people? There's a lot of people that have been playing Diablo for the last 10 years now, basically. And they may have only touched Diablo 3. What is it, and why is it that you think Blizzard returned to Diablo 2, and this is a game that is beloved by the community of Diablo play. I mean, Diablo is a long-running series at this point, but Diablo 2 is held as the holy grail of the series, basically. And what is it that you are taking away from this remaster, I guess, that makes it a must-buy?
And remaster.
Or is it a must-buy? We haven't really talked about that.
Oh, that's where, once I discuss some of the points about it, that's going to be definitely kind of the question, because there's some things about the game that makes it kind of a must-buy, depending on where you sit as a Diablo fan, and in some ways not. If you're unfamiliar with Diablo 2, is there really enough here to kind of pull you in? And we'll come around to that, but initially, just to kind of answer your first question. So Diablo 3 is still a fine video game, but Diablo 2 was kind of a deeper role-playing experience, the way its itemization worked, the way its skill trees worked. There were more classes. There was just more you can kind of do with your builds, right? Because we've discussed this on other topics like games like Outriders and what have you. Like, right, loot and itemization is such a big deal to people. Getting those builds, getting that kind of broken, like this should not work, but here it is. And 2, you could do that more so than you could kind of in 3. 3's opened up a lot with its legendaries and the heretic cube and all that, but 2 was really just a much deeper experience. It was also a much darker experience. Diablo 3 really kind of brightened things up, additional color, and it just, well, it was violent. 2 had a much more, I would almost say hellish, no pun intended, presentation. Like, seeing around you was all dark, right? You couldn't really see far around your character. Like, going into a catacomb, that had more of a horror vibe, in a way. Like, you'd go into a dungeon, and you'd hear things but not see them. And as you're going through trying to fight things, it was a much more unforgiving experience in that aspect, where 3 was more, I'd say, action-packed. Quicker, snappier. Your abilities were on hotkeys, right? Like, you just clicked 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's 4 different abilities.
Right.
In Diablo 2, it's 1, right-click, 2, right-click, 3, right-click, because that was the only way you did your secondaries.
Okay.
Was, you'd have to map it to a button. F is usually the function keys, traditionally. You'd hit it, and then you'd right-click to do the skill, right? It wasn't as... People would get the muscle memory down, obviously, and they could turn it into a way that it played like 3, as snappy as quick, but, right, that quality of life was more in 3 than it was in 2. So that's where we kind of get the two audiences, where 3 is a more accessible Diablo. But Diablo 2 is kind of that golden standard of, like, when they built this ARPG and they set the groundwork for future ARPGs that would copy and be influenced by them, it was that darker tone paired with that deep itemization in loot game that just kept people coming back and coming back. The people who are playing it today, especially because they can mod it. One of the most popular mods for the game is Path of Diablo, which is like, take Path of Exile, some of its concepts, and put it in Diablo 2. Because without the insanity that is Path of Exile, because that's an ARPG that is, if you're a new player, good luck. At least Diablo 2 is still accessible compared to that.
So Diablo 2 is early Metallica, and
Yes.
Diablo 3 is the later years, basically.
Exactly. It still has its fans, but...
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's kind of where I fell in with Diablo 3. I liked some of that quality of life stuff for sure. I played a hell of a lot of that game. There's people that probably have that are Diablo fans that have never played Diablo 2. So it makes sense for Blizzard to revisit that. What do you think about what they've done to the game? Because obviously Diablo 2 was a 2D game.
It was a 2D game.
Diablo 3 or Diablo 2 has been remastered to make it 3D. Does it look? I have only looked at the pictures. Does it look as good as Diablo 3?
I mean, Yes and no. In a way, it's very similar graphically. Like they've if you've played Diablo 3, you know what to expect when it comes to that isometric, the kind of quality of the assets. But the reason I say kind of no is the level of detail in the environments is much heavier in 3, where they tried to play very strict homage to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as dense as 3, but what's there, like the huts, the fire, the alpha effects, all these things that they've redone, the character models are much nicer, much crisper, and they hold up well. But if you're coming out of 3 and expecting just that kind of like aesthetic or that kind of like level of detail, you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get that so much in 2 because they're again, it's a good thing and a bad thing depending on where you're aligned when it comes to remasters, right? Some people want more liberal takes than others, some want more purist takes than others. This one's more of the purist take. It
Mm-hmm.
looks good, but it's definitely when you hit that button to go back to the classic view, because it does that same thing like Command & Conquer Remastered did, right? There's a button, boop, you're back to 800 by 600 resolution, 25
Oh,
frames per
it does
second,
that.
Diablo 2, yeah. So you just hit a button
Uh,
and boop, and everything's, because it's running the engine in the background the entire time. The original game's engine's running the whole time.
huh.
And yeah, you can tell
It's like a
looking at the
Halo
environment.
situation.
Yeah. So you can tell, like, yes, it may not be as dense, but it's a very honest reinterpretation. So it holds up graphically, I think. It's just not, it can be as, it's not as colorful. Like I said, it's kind of Diablo 2's appeal. It's a darker, grimmer, bloodier game. And I know a lot of people, that's what they want Diablo 4 to get back to. That's what they like in their Diablo. It's about fighting the literal lords of hell in a very grim, dark setting. Like there's no good here. Everything's terrible, and
Mm-hmm.
and even Diablo 2 Remastered captures a lot of that because of the color palettes, the way things were designed, the way things were lit and shaded. They capture that even with a modern 3D engine. They still keep very honest to it.
Okay, and that standalone is going to be $39.99
Hmm.
when it arrives. They do have a Prime Evil collection that's coming out as well, $59.99 for the like a complete package, Diablo 3 and Diablo 2. So I mean, people are going to need to make that decision, or just I guess wait however long it's going to take for Diablo 4.
Oh,
But I think Diablo, if you're even waiting for Diablo 4 and you haven't played Diablo 2, I think it's a kind of one of those things where it's like one of those games that spawned a lot of the things that we saw in the early 2000s, and then ultimately like the loot shooters were kind of like inspired by that, were they not? I mean,
yeah, Borderlands.
Diablo
I
was
think
the
Gearbox
thing.
said Diablo was their inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. And Borderlands was a lot of inspiration for a lot of those other shooters that came after it. So yeah, Diablo is in many ways that kind of granddaddy of the loot shooter or those popular games right now. So I think it's something, even if you're at all interested in like the history of games and how they've evolved, you will be able to see that in the different inventory management. Have they changed anything else around? Like from what I read, that there is some quality of life, and you said quality of life, but inventory, any
It's
crafting stuff like that.
It's
What is
real minor what I've seen so
okay?
far. Like I said, they're definitely going more the purist route. So your inventory is still very tiny. Like one of the things I
Okay.
know, I've heard 50-50, right? So a lot of people are happy. Like there's things called charms. Let's just get that started. And you put them in your inventory after you've figured out what they are. You don't equip them, but they give you passive bonuses.
Okay.
But they take up inventory slots. You don't have a huge inventory in Diablo 2, so that's
Mm-hmm.
prime real estate. So people are trying to argue like, well, just give us a charm inventory, right? So we can equip these things, get our bonuses, and have our inventory for equipment and for loot and for potions. And that's not something that's going to happen because there's plenty of purists who think no, that completely changes how you play the game. And
Mm-hmm.
so Vicarious Visions, because that's who's handling it, right? They did the Crash remake and they did Tony
Oh,
Hawk
is it
recently.
Vicarious
Yeah,
Visions? Okay.
yeah, because they got rolled into Blizzard, what, 3 months ago is when they officially announced it.
Oh,
But yeah, it's
that's
Vicarious
right.
Visions doing it. So, which, good studio to be doing a remaster. But they're going
Mm-hmm.
more that purist route. So the inventory is just as tiny, but you can compare items now. You couldn't do that in Diablo 2 originally. It's not one of those, like, modern games where it's like, green arrow to say it's an upgrade, or red arrow, it's a downgrade. Like, it's a very flat, just number to number. You have to do it yourself, but at least you can hit a button and bring them up. That's simple quality of life, but it makes a big deal. Advanced spec sheet. You don't think anything of that nowadays in the game, right? Like, it breaks down all your stats. We take that for granted. Diablo 2 didn't have that. That's something people had to mod in. Now it's natively in the game. And just
And
little things like automatically picking up gold. which you can turn off because again, the super purists are gonna be like, oh, how dare you? I want to pick every pile up with my mouse manually.
And speaking of mods, they are allowing mods for this
From what we
version of the game?
understand, it will continue to have mod support. More than likely, the guys who make mods for Diablo 2 right now will have to update their mods to work with Resurrected, just because of the updated code and such.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll wait to see how this plays out, because I do remember Warcraft Reforged was a complete shit show. But from what they've been saying, this one will not override the old client. So if you have Diablo 2, regular Diablo 2, it won't update to Resurrected. They'll be two separate things. So
Okay.
that's not, you don't have to worry about that Reforged scenario where if you didn't buy Reforged,
You just
tough
couldn't
shit, your
act.
3
Yeah.
was, yeah. So that won't be a case. It will have mod support. It will have its multiplayer. Even when I logged in today, it still had an option, like it had play, and then it had TCP/IP, like an old school, like type in your buddy's IP address and connect
Oh,
to
really?
multiplayer that way. Like some legacy stuff is still getting baked in, and it makes sense because they are keeping that original engine that is
Mhm.
running everything under the scenes. So some of the stuff is still native. They can just spruce it up, update it, kind of keep it running. We'll have to wait and see how the mod support looks like at the end, but that's still comforting to know. Like, hey, if you like running modded Diablo 2, as long as the authors of your mods are still kind of keeping up with them, they'll probably be able to get them to work for Resurrected.
So what was your takeaway? What was your walkaway on the game? You said you put in a few hours on it.
I tried it with PC and now controller because it's coming to consoles that has controller support.
Oh, I didn't realize this is coming to consoles.
Oh
Is
yeah,
it really? Are they
Yep.
so it's all the same console
Switch,
uh,
PlayStation, Xbox. Yeah,
controls
it's gonna
as 3, basically,
have,
or
very similar,
okay?
but the thing that kind of killed me, and I liked this, but we'll see if they add this for mouse and keyboard. Remember how I mentioned like,
Can you use the
classic-
controller on PC?
yeah, and I was just playing like right before we got together the chat. I was playing for the last couple hours, trying out with controller, and I actually kind of prefer controller over mouse and keyboard right now.
I could never get in. Diablo just has always been a mouse and keyboard game for me.
True, but the
But-
original Diablo 2, like I said, remember, yeah, I click 1 to get this skill, then I right-click it.
Mhm.
I click 2. You don't do that with controller. It's got the Diablo 3, like you just assign skills to a
Right?
button.
Yeah,
hit
that's
the button.
that's nice.
So just
I
it
could
felt
never get
snappier and
the-
more modern with a controller. So hopefully they add that for mouse and keyboard as a quality of life toggle. Because I know the purists will be like, no, I must do it the original way. Because
Yeah,
that's what Blizzard intended back in 2000.
Yeah, I wrote such a fanboy article back when Diablo 3 came to consoles initially. I was like, yeah, it was good. It was obviously good. I just could not I had played so much 3 on mouse and keyboard up to that point that the rolling, the dodging, it just never clicked for me with the controller. And I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5. And it was totally like competent and really, really good console game, and the control scheme worked really well, all things considered, and a bunch of extra people got a chance to play Diablo. For whatever reason, I did not agree at the time, but in retrospect, I kind of look back and I go, yeah, that's probably one I missed, because it was a good game and there was a lot of personal bias in there, I think. But what was your walkaway and your overall impressions from the technical alpha? And are you, let's go back to the point of, is it, do you think it's something that people should be excited about?
I think if you've never had a chance to play Diablo 2 and you do like 3, it's going to probably be a 50-50 because you are going to lose some of your quality of life and you are going to lose a little bit of that fidelity. But I still think if you like the build aspect of 3, you will definitely enjoy 2. It takes a little bit longer to crack into, but the build variety is just much stronger there. So you can definitely have a much better end game if that's what you're looking for. But if it's more like the ease of use, you like 3 because it's just more accessible, you may not be as into 2, because what they've done here, yes, there's quality of life, but it's not that level of, let's bring in new players. This is definitely more of a, let's make something for the fans, and if it gets some new players, cool. But my caveat to that is I do think, though, if you're playing on console, on the other hand, it's more accessible, because like I said, with the controller and the skills and the way it works, the controller is more accessible than the old mouse and keyboard. So if you play it on console, it's actually the better way to get it if you want an accessible Diablo 2. If you're playing it on PC, you might be a little more like you're talking about Diablo 3 and how you had your bias. That bias will translate to how Diablo 2 plays. So it's you're gonna have to really kind of look at how you like to play the game. What kind of, like, do you like it being snappy and responsive? Play it on PC with a controller, or just get it on console, because it will have cross-play and cross-prog.
See, back then though, we didn't really there wasn't anything else to compare that to, so it didn't
No.
feel as bad. It was just
No.
like, this is how it is. And now games have become so tailored to accessibility and just ease of use, and people being able to slide right in and play at almost an expert level in a lot of different games. I think there are going to be some hurdles for people regardless of their familiarity with Diablo 3. If they're familiar with Diablo 2, obviously it's probably one of those situations where you slide right back into it. But even then, I could see it being a little jarring compared to like modern video games. But I don't know because I haven't played it. But that's my assumption.
Yeah.
But so I guess there you have it. Feel free to stick around for the rest of this video where we're going to have some more gameplay that you can watch. Tomorrow people will be able to access, or today whenever you're watching this, be able to access the technical alpha. Do you know who that's going out to specifically? Is that anybody? Just everyone? Is that public?
Tomorrow's invites anyone who signed up, but it's a small pool. Like, they're not sending a lot out. Where today was just press and streamers. So.
Okay.
And then they said there'll be at least one more test, so if you're watching this and you didn't get in this weekend, go to their website, log into your account, sign up for the alpha. There's a chance you might get another one, and if they do anything else after that, also a chance. But at least one no. We know at least one more. So,
okay.
So if that's something you're interested in, go check it out, sign up.
When is this coming out? Is this on Blizzard time? Do they have
It's on Blizzard time, just 2021.
Okay.
Soon.
Okay.
With all the delays we've seen this year, who knows? But they're hoping for 2021.
Alrighty. Well, that was our quick impressions on the Diablo 2 Technical Alpha. Thanks for joining us. For Brandon, I'm William for Attack of the Fanboy, and we'll see you next time.
Take it easy.
Good day. I'll put that to good use.
Let's deal, my friend.
Ah, very good. I have translated the runes on this scroll. You must find the cairn stones and touch them in the order that I have written.
I can't carry anymore.
And so it came to pass that the Countess, who once bathed in the rejuvenating blood of 100 virgins, was buried alive. And her castle, in which so many cruel deeds took place, fell rapidly into ruin. Rising over the buried dungeons in that god-forsaken wilderness, a solitary tower, like some monument to evil, is all that remains. The Countess's fortune was believed to be divided among the clergy, although some say that more remains unfound, still buried alongside the rotting skulls that bear mute witness to the inhumanity of the human creature.
Greetings. Not here.
Hello.
I can't. What a strange-looking tree. overburdened. I'll put that to good use. Good to see you.